Hello everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie, I am your astrologer. Welcome back to my channel. It is Friday night, so we are doing live readings. This week we're actually going to be taking a look at questions pertaining to transits or aspects in your natal horoscope. If you check out the link that is pinned in the chat box, or you can also check out the super chat, we have it available. We're going to be doing live readings this evening. Thanks for joining me. We're kind of getting into the flow of this now. Like now people are a little bit more I think aware of how the schedule is flowing, so it's going nicely. We alternate every Friday doing live readings. Last week was tarot, this week is going to be astrology. If you're looking for tarot, check back next week. We are going to be doing those live readings. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western evolutionary astrologer with a real emphasis on intuitive astrology readings and predictive methods, both in a sense of understanding transits, the natal, as well as incorporating tarot and clairvoyant into my readings. Check out my links below. You can get on my books and schedule an appointment with me. I've got some openings going into September right now. I'm a busy lady. And those of you guys who aren't aware, I also have new levels on my channel. So you can actually support my channel if you're somebody who really enjoys these live readings, or maybe you enjoy my weekly overviews. Every Monday morning, I hop on here and talk to you guys about what's going on with the astrology for that week. If there's a new moon or a full moon, I go pretty in depth to that. I also will talk about how it's going to affect all of the 12 signs. And I also will discuss any major, significant aspects. If there's a new moon, or if there's a full moon, if there's an eclipse, if there's a retrograde. And the end of each month, you can catch my monthly address where I talk to you about what's going to happen generally for the month ahead. Hopefully I'm going to get to a point with the channel where we have enough subscribers and people who are kind of helping kind of build that subscription base so I can create more content for you guys. So if you want to learn more about how to read charts, how I analyze charts, questions about natal aspects in the horoscope, and just anything that you guys want to know more about, I'm hoping to start kind of building a platform where I can create more of that content for you so you can understand how I read. Level 1 just gets you in and you support the channel. Super awesome. Level 2 is going to get you in, you support. You also get a shout out from me. And level 3, you support, you get the shout out, and you also get one reading per month, which is kind of cool. You'll be one of the first people that I answer questions for, whether it's one tarot question, which will be 3 cards, or one question about something going on in your horoscope. It's a pretty good deal. People like Paula, Sam Norton, Catherine Murray, Emma R., and Susan Wexler, they are all supporting the channel in that way. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate all of you. And even those of you guys who like, share, subscribe, super awesome. We've seen a lot of growth in this channel just since I've been back in the new year. So those of you guys who have been watching my videos back in the days when I worked with Astrology, and then also I did a lot of work with Mike, and maybe some of you guys know me from just working locally in Los Angeles, did readings there for a very long time. I'm now coming up on 8 years working for myself and almost 16 years of studying tarot and astrology. So half of my life at this point has been dedicated to this, and I'm finally kind of starting to get into the flow of really kind of curating something that's a little bit more different and unique in this field. So as always, I appreciate all of your guys' support. Hi everybody in the chat, it's nice to see you. Hello Denise, Nathania, that's a nice name, Elizabeth, Plant, Wendy, nice to see all of you guys. Thank you guys for joining me. I've got clients and friends and all kinds of followers all over the world, so it's super awesome to see all sorts of just different people who kind of just check in. And yeah, I'm becoming more accustomed to recognizing people now that I'm seeing people show up on lives. We've got like a fun little family that kind of checks in. So somebody's asking, do I work with interceptions? Absolutely. So a little bit about my way of reading charts. I work with Placidus. I do not work with the whole house system. And I'm a Western astrologer with a real focus on aspects to Pluto, aspects to the nodes, and transits are my thing. So I work a lot with transiting planets when I sit down and do a session. If it's not a natal chart analyzation, I'm going to look at transits that are happening to the natal, the progression, the solar return chart. And I've studied with a slew of people. So, some of my kind of mentors in astrology astrology teachers, or like, you know, people like Lada, who I worked with for a long time, Nicola, if you're familiar with his degree theories, and just a handful of other practitioners that are all of like my astrology and like metaphysical mom and dads. So now I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm right on the verge of starting to put together some stuff to start teaching again, and also start mentoring some other people. So stay tuned for that, because I really hope to start doing that really soon on my channel, especially because the way that I kind of approach astrology is just very kind of between the eyes and very different maybe than some of the other fluff that you're going to see on the internet. So if there's any of our level 3 people like Paula or maybe Sam or Catherine that's here, let me know. You guys all do get 1 reading per month, so we're just kind of coming up on that cusp. So you can technically check in next week if you want to cash in on that. If you're somebody who's super into this and you want to get a reading tonight, you can do that. You can join the subscription if you're going to buy a question anyway. It can be a great way to get started. If you guys do send me a PayPal payment, just remind me, let me know. Sometimes I'm going back and forth between reading the charts, and you'll see me analyze the charts live, and also what I see in the PayPal. So just be like, hey, this is my name. Some of you guys have different names in your PayPal also than what's your screen name on the chat. So just remind me. Thanks, Angelie. Thank you very much. Hi, when will we get back together? So what we're doing questions for right now is going to be astrology. So it's $40 for 1 astrology question. If you want me to pull up your chart, let me know. You can send 40 total and we'll be able to answer a question, but we're going to be doing astrology. So it's $40 minimum for the questions. You can send that through PayPal. You can send that through Super Chat. And those of you guys who are VIPs who are on my subscription list, let me know. I will get you in sooner. Thanks, Angela. I hope you appreciate that. How's everybody doing? How are you guys doing, like, in the midst of like these squares that are building up again? Is anybody feeling it? It's okay, Angeline, no worries. If you do end up sending the difference, just give me your information. So for those of you guys watching, I will need your time, the exact time, date, city of birth. That's how I am able to put it into my software, pull up your chart, and then look at what's kind of transiting and what's going on with you personally. If you have a question specifically about your chart, it would be 40. If you have a relationship question, if you want me to look at your chart and aspect to somebody else's, I can give you my 2 cents, that's 65. But yeah, also, you know, a reading is included in level 3. So if you want to get in and you want to support the channel, you can subscribe. Yeah, there's a lot of friction in the skies right now. Those of you guys who saw my video that I put out for the monthly aheads for August, very similar energy to what was kind of going on in the beginning of July. The Saturn-Uranus squares were kind of alive and well. We're seeing a reoccurrence of that's happening as a result of the Sun moving into Leo and Mercury moving into Leo. We're also going to see some Mercury-Sun conjunction, so there's some awareness and then some like Kazemi stuff happening, so lots of important information that's going to start showing up in the next week. If you haven't already gotten your August ahead with all the important dates, do check out that video. It's on my main page and you can get an idea of what's coming in the month ahead. I would really like to get to the point where I can maybe create a subscription-based horoscope. What do you guys think? Is that something that you would be interested in? Let me know, because I'm thinking about maybe creating a tier for that, so that way those of you guys who want to know very specifically my take on what's going to happen with your specific astrology for the month ahead might be something that I start offering. Thanks, Angelie. Lunar chart. So you want me to look at your lunar return? Is that what you're asking? Oh man, you're scheduled to see me this week. Awesome. Thank you for being patient. It's been very busy for me. You're in Chicago now. Okay, so March 17th, 87. So let's pull you up here, and that's at 9:53 a.m. It's kind of cool when people ask for a lunar chart. We don't see a lot of that, so that's cool. Those of you guys who are questioning what that is, that's your lunar return. So we're going to look at a little bit what's going to happen in the month ahead. Okay, and then we will look at your lunar return. And that started on the 17th of this month. Oops, Chicago. Here we go. July 17th, done. So let's look at that lunar return. So this is going to be about mid-July through about, let's say, mid-August. So you're halfway through. The person who's moderating this is a Bears fan, but my family's from Wisconsin, so we don't play that game. All right, so this is your lunar return, July 16, 2021 in Chicago at 11:11 p.m. How magical is that for you, Angeli? So interesting stuff that's kind of going on here. I have this set on Placidus, but I want you to really look at this chart, especially if you're asking about a lunar chart. I'm going to assume that you are somewhat familiar with astrology. Look at all 4 points in this chart: the ascendant, the midheaven, the descendant, the IC, the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th house cusps. Here we have all of them in 0 degrees of a cardinal sign. These are the world axis points. So this is a really big month. 0 degrees of a cardinal sign represents a rebirth, a brand new start when it comes to these 4 areas of your life: your body, your relationship with yourself, your 4th house, which has to do with your home, your emotions, your family, your 7th house is your relationships, your 10th house is your career. So whenever I see the angles on all of these 4 points, especially with an Aries rising, there is some kind of like restart that's happening. Very exciting. It's also kind of getting at these areas of your life with like your little baby legs, like just kind of starting to get your firm footing in this, needing to take initiative, needing to have a fresh start. I love that. I also love that Mars rules this chart, and you've got Mars conjunct Venus. So it's an alignment of the 7th house and also the ascendant. Being of service, focusing on health, wellness, healthier relationships, relationships that are going to feel supported, but yet that particular Mars is still in a square to Uranus, and it's in opposition to Saturn. So I see this as like a lot of sorting and sifting and trying to figure out what does and what does not work for you. That Mars and Venus is also in Leo, ruled by the Sun. Sun's in the 5th. Sun opposed Pluto. So are you reevaluating your goals when it comes to children, creativity, younger people, dating? Is there anything like this that's happening? Because that Sun-Pluto opposition is pretty strong. If you look at it, 24 to 25 degrees. Becoming aware of our goals, right? Where we want to move into. With the Sun being the ruler of the 6th, healthier goals, healthier workspaces, more time for creativity, more time maybe for romance or even for dating. Oh, wow. Yeah. So if you have a progressed moon change and a progressed solar change in this last year, that's really big. That's really, really, really big. I'm really excited to look at your chart when we do your session, because I think that what that's going to show is just a pivotal year, especially because those 2 signs are fixed signs. It's about the continuation of that energy. We also look at, you know, the progressed moon in Aquarius needs more independence. You know, the progressed sun in Taurus, it's all about security. And so it represents that Saturn-Uranus square so much. Going to the gym, very goal-oriented, your therapist, new week schedule. Yeah, so see how this is already manifesting for you? You're only 2 weeks into this lunar return. You're halfway through, knew everything, exactly. What's really exciting about this also is that you do see aspects from the moon making a sextile. So while, you know, Mars is the star of the show, this is a lunar return. So we do want to look at the moon and the aspects of the moon. The moon in Libra, partnership oriented, finding balance, right? It can be finding balance in your relationships, finding balance in your creativity, finding balance in health and wellness maybe. Now that moon does move into a square with Pluto and the sun. So that lunar kind of aspect, I mean, Pluto's going to win, the moon's moving more quickly. So there's a lot of sorting through like, okay, is this the best doctor for me? Is this the best therapist for me? Is this the best relationship? You know, how is this working? I could see a lot of like working through inner child stuff or stuff from your childhood, and power struggles maybe that stem from feeling like powerless as a child. Do everything, me too, just inquiring about a foster kid, very child focused. So also being of service to children, right? Or being of service to your heart. I think like, yes, it could be foster kids. It can also be cardio. It can also be wanting to donate time or resources or services to some of these people. So you're halfway through this lunar transit. You're already kind of doing really great. I want you to really reevaluate where you're at over the next 48 hours. Why do I say that? Because the moon is in Aries. It's going to come into that opposition. It's going to square where the moon and where the sun and where Pluto was at the time of your lunar return. And it's going to push you in the direction of like really reevaluating, am I doing all these restarts? So it sounds like you're doing it when it comes to children. It sounds like you're doing it when it comes to goals and authority. Are you doing it when it comes to your relationships? Because the body is very much the moon in Aries going through this first part of the chart right now. So yeah, learning so much about balance. 7th house moons, already that has like a Libra feel, but like really having that moon in Libra being the ruler of the 5th is like a focus and emphasis on like establishing bonds with a relationship or the relationship with a child. The moon is very maternal. And so when it squares off with the sun, there is this something that's in friction between what you physically show, the sun, and also how you feel emotionally, the moon. So there can be like some aspect of going back and forth. Do I want to foster? Do I not? Is it a smart idea to foster if I want to try to establish a relationship? You know, if I end up taking a kid in and fostering, you know, and what if I want to adopt that child? Am I going to end up being in a relationship where somebody doesn't want to have children? Some of these things can kind of come up for you. So I would just say pay attention to that. There's definitely a lot of changes that happen in a lunar month like this when you see the cardinal T-squares. To me, it's like very reminiscent of some of the stuff that happened in 2020, right? Because we had the nodes that were in Cancer and in Capricorn. We had all of the planets that were going through Capricorn. So you want to reflect on what happened in the month of March and April in Aries season, and also what happened in September, October, and Libra season. It will feel kind of like deja vu for some people because we're having this very brief square. You happen to get caught up in it because you've been experiencing Pluto square your natal moon for a little while now. Thankfully, you're about done, so you're moving out of it. Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, if it's something that's going to be 3 months, that's also the representation of like the divided quarters in your chart, right? Like I said, like everything's a fresh start. So you're willing to go in the direction when it comes to home and family, try something new. Relationships, try something new. Career and status, 10th house, try something new. Your body. So honestly, I feel like the other pieces of the puzzle is not even so much the fitness or even the kid thing. It's also relationships and how you're changing your status in the world. Are you going from being somebody who does something particular for a reading, for a living, to you know, being somebody who's like, I'm a foster mom, right? That's how your status has changed in the world. So think about that. Stay on the path, really look for those squares to be kind of playing out, that last kind of opposition, and then the 3/4 square when it goes into Capricorn. You're going to feel a huge shift in energy when we come into the new moon, the full moon that's going to be in Aquarius, because it's going to be the moon crossing Pluto right before we have the full moon. So you might kind of see some huge shift happen in all of these areas, like the 3rd through like the 8th of August. Hopefully that's helpful. Let me know. Hey Sam, it's nice to see you. You're definitely one of my VIPs. Would you give me your time and your city and your date of birth so I can pull up your chart? And if you have a question about something, then I can put it in the chart and then you can let me know, and I can give you some insight into whatever you've got going on. It's nice to see you. Those of you guys who are watching, if you see the chat, the little icons where they have like the little like shooting star, those are the members, so that way I can kind of tell people apart, so I get a hang of the people who are regularly showing up in the chat. Sam is somebody who has been super active and supports the channel. Thank you. And also, if you guys aren't aware, I have other platforms. You can check me out with my social media links below. I also have a podcast that comes out depending on if you subscribe to that, Saturdays or Mondays, but there's always a new podcast out on Mondays. Midheaven Podcast, you can check that out on my page, and we have all kinds of social media. We're also on all of the different podcast networks. Where were you born and your birthday and year and time? So whatever that was. The natal chart is basically a snapshot of where all of the planets were at the time of your birth, including your ascendant. So that's going to be dependent on, basically where the sun was rising or setting. The ascendant talks a lot about what you come into this life. examining, showing. It's like the mask that you wear. Not a lot of people realize that when we write horoscopes, when we talk about horoscopes, it can apply to the sun signs. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes if you read the sun sign, it doesn't always make sense. You actually, at least for my predictions, you want to read the rising sign. That's how I would recommend listening to my predictions, and then listen to the sun sign. The rising sign is usually what physically happens. The sun sign does benefit you quite a bit, but it might be something that's just more personal. All right, so we've got December 16th, 1985 in Dallas, Texas. So let's look at that. December 16th. And then Sam, just let me know, what do you want me to take a look at? Like, what do you have a question about? 533. Dallas. Oops. Guess I should get rid of that solar return, lunar return. There we go. So this should be your chart, Sam. Gemini rising, Sag sun, and your moon is in Pisces. The lunar chart is going to be for where you reside most of the time, because the moon moves around pretty quickly. So me personally, I like looking at the solar return from the natal horoscope. I know that people think that's crazy. Some astrologers believe you can go somewhere on one day of the year and it changes the solar return. Some astrologers believe you have to kind of live there for a couple of months. I've played with all of these methods. For me, the method that has been the most accurate for prediction is I actually move and I learned this through a friend of mine, Rose Theodora. She's an amazing astrologer. We were always bantering and going back and forth about this, but I've been playing around with this the last couple months. Look at your solar return. Go back several years and look at your solar return from where you were born, and make it whole house. I don't usually use whole house, but whole house. Just trust me on this. For predictive measures, it's actually very accurate. But for right now, if it's a lunar return, you look at where you're living most of the time. In Austin now, wondering about career, what to do, how to make friends. Would lunar be best? No, I would say transits. Lunar is going to be just what's going on for the next month. So let's talk about this. So you're a Gemini rising. Off the bat, that's usually, pretty communicative, the exchanging of ideas, very curious, very information driven, wanting to share and relate and exchange. So off the bat, that makes your Mercury very strong. In your chart, you have Mercury conjunct Saturn. So there is this sense of wanting to communicate, but it's a little limited, or wanting to do it if it's of service or if it's helping people. In the guise of Sag, it's like sharing information that better helps people, if that makes any sense to you. So for your career, you got a couple things that are kind of happening at the moment. One is your career is your 10th house is Pisces. So the good news is that long term, let's talk about within this next year, Jupiter's ingress back into Pisces can be really great for your career. Why? It expands your beliefs when it comes to your career. It can have you going into a totally different realm where you're doing some more kind of Piscean work, where maybe you work with film, or you work with music, or you work with people who need assistance with mental health stuff, or people who are struggling with addictions. Maybe even in the metaphysical world, there can be something like that. For you, that house is ruled by Neptune. And you've also got the moon in Pisces, and then your natal Neptune is in the 7th. So I could see you going into a direction where in this next year you bring in some kind of career counselor, or maybe you start deciding that you want to work closely with somebody who is a guide or a guru for you. You're still in your Jupiter's return, and you're still in Jupiter transiting your 9th house. So I see that about bringing in people who are going to help give you the knowledge, the information, the direction to how to guide your life in the direction where you're doing work that feels meaningful, and also it's really beneficial for your emotional health. And I see this square that you have that's building with transit Neptune in your 10th house, which makes things very fuzzy because it's squaring your sun. So you can get lost in conversations. It rules your 3rd. It can be hard to relay information. To me, it seems like more dreamy and kind of creative. And you will be dealing with this square between Neptune and your sun, and then Jupiter's going to join the mix very soon. So what that basically kind of levels out to is more dreaming about the perfect career, a lot more confusion about details and practicality and really doing something solid. I look at this and go, do you have an interest in practicing more astrology? Do you have an interest in like spiritual healing? Do you have an interest in working with people who need counseling or have issues with addiction? Do you have an interest in learning more about like past life regression work or hypnotism or working with dance or working with music as a form of healing? Is there anything like that that interests you? You know, you may be able to incorporate that into what you're teaching. I love Jupiter going into Pisces. I do feel like that can also bring you an opportunity to really strengthen partnerships when it comes into your career. So if you do feel like you're a little lost in Neptune square your sun and you're not sure what you want, it can bring somebody in, because Neptune and Jupiter coming together, ruler of your 7th house, Jupiter, you can bring in a business partner that's like, I'm really organized, and you're like, great, I have the vision, like, let's do it, right? It can also bring in a romantic partner who you end up kind of collaborating with and expanding with. I do feel like, because dealing with the 7th house, and that's about partnerships, and it's very Jupiterian, somebody who could teach you something, somebody who could train you, and then going into the 10th house is training you to create art, or training you to, you know, to kind of refine what it is that you're already doing. It's like that with my tattoo artist guru or a mate guru, healing essence people, and aerial stuff. Personally, in that order, tattoos for me always kind of deal like with aspects to Mars. So here's what's interesting. Jupiter in Pisces is trining your natal Mars. So there is some kind of like sweetness here at some point around, I would say, like November, and then again in the new year, where if you wanted to kind of do some like tattoo work, you could work with somebody who could like train you with that aspects to your Mars and that aspects to your Pluto. But when we analyze what somebody does for a living, we look at the ruler of their midheaven, Neptune. So yes, you need a partnership, Neptune and Capricorn in the 7th. We also look at the aspects to your 6th house. And from what I can see, like, your health is very sensitive. There's some aspect of like health-wise, like really responding a lot to people's energies or people's crises, right? And you have like Uranus in your 6th house, so you need that freedom of doing something a little rebellious or doing something that's a little oddball or kind of like different in some way. So I would say in that order, it'd be probably along the lines of like trying to go along the tattoo stuff. Aerial things is definitely interesting, because that's the 9th house. Anything that requires levitation, or whether it's flying or aerial yoga, I like that for you as well, because Jupiter is going to be on your moon and it's going to trine Mars. I personally feel like that can bring money in for you. Aerial work, maybe even teaching people at a distance, maybe even putting together like a course or a video or something like that. So that can be a great way to create residual income. All of it fascinates you. You've been interested in herbs and essences for 8 or 9 years, trying to get a job, but they don't want to seem to hire me. First of all, it's your Jupiter transit, so there's a guru. And so whether it's like really learning, you know, not just the aspects of the herbs, but the metaphysical benefits, the vibrational stuff of the herbs, right? There's a school that's called it's an astrology course that factors in herbs that I took, and I want to call it like the Evolutionary School of Herbalism or something. There's something like that that's online. That's a guy teacher, and I think he has a partner, and they teach together. Really great course. I'm almost completely finished with it. I've been working on it off and on for the last couple of years, but it really helps you understand how to kind of connect the planets to the herbs, and to be able to really look at it from a metaphysical or kind of like a medicinal perspective, and be able to like actually make magic happen. So just be mindful. There are things out there that are going to be popping up in your astrology to really kind of help you have these gurus come in. I think you're really going to love when Jupiter goes back into Pisces at the end of this year, especially when it trines all your planets in the 5th house, helping you find some aspect of self-expression, whether that's the aerial yoga or even doing the tattoo stuff. And it builds really for the first couple of months of next year, really expanding. You've also got a South Node transit going through your 6th house. So I would say that there is a loss or a letting go of one type of work to go deeper into the North Node transit in the 12th, which is more spiritual and isolated. Hopefully that's helpful for you. August and driving. One other thing I would say about that is that you do have Neptune squaring your sun. So Neptune, ruler of the 10th, square your sun, ruler of the 3rd. if you're on medications, if you're drowsy, if you're really tired, if you're not well rested, don't drink or drive ever, obviously under the influence, but really especially because I see that with a lot of like squares between the 10th house and the ruler of the third, there can sometimes be accidents, but more likely you're likely to get like pulled over. Somebody will really throw the book at you because it's about people who are going to kind of be in charge. So be mindful of that. But I don't see anything other than that. Oh, wow. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, I mean, usually wrecks deal more so with the ruler of the third, and you're dealing with the Neptune square, which is very much longer. And also I feel like this can be because the nodes were squaring your sun as well. So thankfully you're about out of those squares. And this next year, you need to be a little bit more mindful of the driving, especially when Jupiter shows up. Pisces moons can sometimes have a tendency to not be in their body all of the time. Like it's harder for them to stay grounded. So possibly even like, you know, keeping crystals on you or things to help you stay grounded, it can be helpful. Hey Patrick, what fixed star asteroid do you think should be given more attention other than Chiron? Do you have a favorite? Well, there are astrologers who do nothing but specialize specifically in fixed stars. I am not one of those people, although it's become more of an interest to me recently, and I started working with like some of the, you know, I think it's like the trans-Neptunian stars. I can't remember what it's called. I have a book that I can kind of see on my bookshelf, but I can't see it. Once again, recommended by my friend Rose Theodora. We're getting really interested in starting to talk more about the mythology of some of these. Some of the big ones that I really work with are obviously Chiron, Pallas, Vesta, Ceres is my favorite. She's on my midheaven. Juno is one of my favorites too. It really depends on what you're looking for specifically. Those are some of the bigger ones, right? Some people would argue that there needs to be, you know, more than just that. I really like to look at, just my own personal thing, having fixed stars, especially prominent fixed stars, on the angles, because that always seems to kind of play like a really big role in like the archetypes. And for me especially, because I do have like, I have Juno in my first and Vesta in my fourth and Pallas in my seventh and Chiron in my 10th. So I feel like for me, there's always this reoccurrence of like me going through all of this series stuff because it's on my midheaven. But every 7 years, I seem to kind of go deeper into a particular type of archetype when I have aspects because they're on my angles, if that makes sense. So especially if you have it also in close contact to your sun or your moon, that can also be very prominent. But I would really say check those angles, especially the midheaven, especially the ascendant. Some asteroids or some fixed stars being conjunct those are definitely pretty important, but it's going to vary on a case-by-case basis, depending on, you know, what people are into. Just looking at my fixed star list and what I have, I can tell you what I have that comes up that's most important, at least for me. Let's see. Preferences. It looks like the ones that I have displayed are Lilith, Lilith, Ceres, Juno, Pallas. Sometimes I look at Eros, and pretty much that's it. I do like looking at the vertex though. That's not what you're asking about, but that's something else that I have on my important list, the nodes. You know, it really just depends on maybe which one is the most prominent. I'm going to probably start talking about this pretty soon because I've been looking at the transits of what's going on in the skies right now. And we've got Ceres and Lilith that are both going to be dancing with the North Node pretty soon. So those of you guys who have any interest in either one of those archetypes, stay tuned. Regulus, okay. I mean, that's a fixed star. That's not a meteor. So what we're really looking at is like some of the asteroids, but Regulus is a fixed star. Although some people would say it's moved a little bit. Oh, hi, Lynn. I didn't see you. Yeah, Sam, companion stuff is fine. Hi, Sapphire. Nice to see you. Thank you, Plant. Let's look at your chart. Let's see what's up. Yeah, the galactic center is also really cool. That's a point though, that's not necessarily an asteroid, but it's a very important one, especially if you have anything between, like, let's say 26 and 29 degrees of Sag. Actually, Sam, I think you have your descendant there, so you kind of connect spiritually through partnerships, or maybe the universe speaks through your partners. All right, so let's look at plant. 92581. Thank you for your donation. At 10:36 a.m. And that was in Bridgeton, New Jersey. So let's look at your question. Would appreciate it if you'd also touch on health, which has been challenging. Would you talk about major themes in my chart? Okay, so let's look first at, let's get all of this stuff out of here. Let's just look at your chart, and then we'll look at your aspects. Sag rising. Whoa, look at that Libra stellium that you have in the 10th. Wow, that really stands out to me. And your nodes are at 29 degrees. I guess a couple things really stand out looking at your chart. There's a number of things, but that stellium of planets that you have in your 10th house, to me, seems pretty interesting. Sun, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto. So you were born right when we were seeing the peak of that super conjunction in Libra. What I do like is that Saturn is exalted in Libra, so it does well there, and having it in the 10th house, it's happy there. Definitely like a lot of opportunities for career advancement, transformation of your career throughout time, really significant relationships with powerful figures or people who you work with, or even relationships out in the world. But the Sun, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto, that conjunction of all of these planets, that stellium, to me, it looks like it's just a huge emphasis when it comes to your reputation out in the world, your career, and a real focus of like getting to the top. Maybe working with elders, older people, working with a partner or something like that. Mercury rules that house, and you do have Mercury as part of the stellium, but it is in your 11th. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, one of the bigger themes in your life is like these achievements, and whether it's the goal is to get married, to have the big, you know, corporate job, to launch the business, like whatever it is, like there's a lot of like long-term goals. Yes, I use Placidus. Yeah, I do. So I just want to make sure, do we have the right time? 10:36 a.m. Yeah, so do you use Whole House? We make sure that we have the right time zone. I believe we do. Oh, no, we don't. I take that back. Apologies. I did not have the right time. Okay. Thank you for catching that. Yeah. People who are Sag rising are like, I'm not Scorpio rising. Okay, there we go. You still have that stellium, though. The stellium just moves into your 11th house. So Sun, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto has a different twist then. It's about networks, friends, socializing, what your goals are, long-term goals, being able to do things that are different. Scorpio rising off the bat, ruler being Pluto and Mars. Those two are going to be heavy hitters, and you've got your chart ruler Pluto conjunct Jupiter. So it's about having powerful, wealthy friends, people who make you more aware of your goals, being able to really stay in contact or connected with some of these friends. That the idea of networking and socializing and friendships are kind of a blessing and a curse in this chart. I got you, don't worry. I also feel like we got to look at Mars. And so in your chart, Mars in Leo in the 9th house is in a square to your ascendant. So that can kind of represent this friction. It also squares your Venus. It's this friction between, I think, the fear to change and transform versus going off on adventures or spiritual quests. This can also be pushing you further to travel, to learn about other spiritual beliefs, perhaps through travel or through higher education. You might be somebody who is really into the arts, or maybe even art history, or anything that has to do with like culture of that nature. So that might be something that's really prominent in your life. Usually some really heavy Libra in this chart. Like this is all about like enjoying the ride in this lifetime and having having a lot of fun. You'd never know that with the Scorpio rising, but I really think that this is interesting. Probably some of the biggest things that you're going through in the immediate near future is the fact that you know, Uranus is still kind of dancing in opposition to your Venus. This just recently happened for you. And Uranus is the ruler of your 4th house. So it can be a lot of like transformations emotionally pertaining to relationships, where you're living. So let's say you are coupled and a relationship is kind of stressful. You may really feel that and be in a situation where you need to either emotionally deal with letting go or actually letting go of old partnerships or old family dynamics to make room for like new, because Uranus in your 7th house wants to set you free. So it can be new unconventional partners coming in, or a current relationship where, you know, you're in a situation where somebody's kind of acting erratic and they're in and they're out. It's in friction to Saturn, which is technically in your 3rd, but it will move into your 4th. So it's about staying open to different ideas. Obviously, Saturn in your 3rd is going to do this thing where it's going to have you very logical and very practical, but there's new information, new beliefs, new opportunities to keep your schedule kind of a little sparkly and a little unconventional in your 6th house. For many Scorpio risings, this has been really challenging because it represents like an erraticness to your schedule or to your career, or perhaps even in your case, your health. Mars is the ruler of your 6th house of health. And so I think the reason why you've had some health challenges is that you've got Uranus squaring your Mars and opposing your Venus. So dietary changes can be helpful. Also the ability to just be a little bit more like sensitive to your schedule fluctuating. And when I think Uranus and Saturn come out of squares with your natal Mars, because you've got Saturn in opposition and Uranus squaring, I think some of this stuff may subside. But long-term wise, you know, Venus ruler of the 7th in the 12th squaring Mars can be relationship anxiety or things that you absorb from other people that affect your health. Just catching up. Ruling magnetic fields have reversed, pole shift. I could see that with the Saturn-Uranus squares, some kind of, you know, Uranian being. I would say Uranus or Pluto would be magnets. I can double check that. Let me look. Does anybody know? That's one thing I've never really looked at is magnets. Magnets or poles. I don't know if poles will be in here. Let me check. This is my handy dandy rulership book. Rex bills. Those of you guys who are big into astrology, it can be really great. But I would say magnets. Let's see. Magnets. Magnetism. Yeah, it's Uranus or the moon. So Uranus and Saturn are in a square, right? And Uranus is in Taurus. It's in a square with Saturn. And it can be like our technology is going to have to change because of these poles shifting. So I could definitely see that. Cops meeting in 2 weeks. Activists busy now. Curious how that's going to go. I mean, it's hard to say. I need to look at the astrology for that a little bit more closely, but I could see that with the Saturn Uranus, especially because Uranus in Taurus is like physical movement, right? But I'm wondering if Saturn in Aquarius is like it's happening because all of these weird electromagnetic fields going on, or like all this new technology that we're using, and maybe that could happen, or just that we haven't innovated our energy yet, that we're using up a lot of energy, or there's like a lot of frequency challenges that are creating movement. But also earthquakes and all kinds of other things come with those squares, especially with Uranus. Plant, let me know if that was helpful for you. I am interested if you want to share going through huge changes in relationships, work, bathing, everything is affecting your health. Here's what I would tell you, okay? Uranus in your 6th in opposition to Venus is like the first thing you want to do is you want to analyze your relationships and ask you which ones are bringing you stress, which is affecting the body. There's still fireworks going on in my neighborhood. Sorry, guys. Where stress is affecting the body or the nervous system, how you can better supplement that with rest, and also like dietary changes, you know, that might be really helpful. You might want to look into cell salts. That can be really helpful for the nervous system, especially dealing with all of that stress. But what you've got going on is a fixed T-square between Uranus, Saturn, Mars, and Venus. I also feel like some kind of like energy healing can be helpful, you know, during this transit. You might even benefit from you know, clearing out your home space and rearranging the energy in your home because it's the ruler of your fourth, removing family members or relationships from your physical home space that are creating a lot of static. You really want to support that nervous system. Coasts have to self-evacuate now. Fields have reverse scientific data. Yeah, I mean, like across the board, what we're seeing with Saturn in Aquarius, especially now that Jupiter is back in the same sign as Saturn, there is going to definitely be a lot of limitation of information and facts and science that may not be released, or it may be kind of curbed for a little bit, or you know, it's, you know, certain sources don't want that stuff getting out. Like that's what's going to happen. And also having Jupiter go back into the same sign as Saturn, we're definitely going to see like this potential fear coming up of limiting travel, or our freedoms, limiting our ability to go places, limiting our freedom when it comes to socializing, right? Jupiter in Aquarius with Saturn. So some people are speculating, is there going to be something coming up where we're going to have like other, you know, other lockdowns? I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. But if you look into the astrology building into 2022, the North Node and the South Node are going to come into a square with Saturn in Aquarius. So definitely there is more limitations coming. There's more social limitations coming. There's more political stuff that's going to be coming up in regards to laws and regulations with what we can and cannot do because Jupiter is there. And when it squares the nodes, it's going to represent some kind of a crisis because it's in fixed signs, especially economically, right? I've been resting a lot, trying to get the message. I need rest. My mind is pretty busy. I do meditate daily and spend time in nature. That's great, especially if you've got these placements that are going through, you know, the signs of Taurus. The other thing I would say that is building in your chart plant is, you know, Pluto's getting really close to your South Node. And your South Node ruled by Saturn. So when you have Saturn transits, it's very important. And being that your South Node's in Capricorn, it wants you to walk more, breathe more, you know, release of this feeling of constantly having to overanalyze everything, over communicate everything, work too hard to communicate, working too hard to breathe. Hiking, breath work, meditation, being in nature is good, but that North Node in Cancer ruled by the moon is really learning about how to emotionally like take control, right? And the North Node of the ninth house can be foreign travel. It can be culture, living in a different place, being in a completely different place, going to, you know, further away travels, really integrating some aspect of, you know, memory even from your culture or from your background. Like this is a chart with Venus being in the 12th and like Mars being in the 9th. I wonder, you know, do you feel like you need to move away for a period of time? I know that seems kind of stressful for a Scorpio rising, but, you know, Saturn will only go further into your 4th house. And so sometimes this can be like reevaluating whether or not it's time to emotionally clear house or like literally purge your house and consider living somewhere new for a little bit. So I wonder if that's something that's come up for you. So those of you guys who are just tuning in and checking in, we are doing live readings. So we're doing either analyzing aspects in the natal, or I'm answering questions about transits, or if you have a relationship question, you can check out the PayPal below, or you can hit up Super Chat. Between Cancer and Capricorn, of close friend, I've already left for Brazil, set up safety zone there. Really interesting. I've heard a lot of people talking about this. I need to look more into the pole stuff. I went through the Pluto square last year. I've been going through the Neptune square, Neptune recently. I mean, thankfully, one thing I will tell you is that, you know, really it's the Pluto transit though. See, because Pluto is very slow. So yes, you're out of your Pluto squares. Pluto is going retrograde, so it's coming back. It's the tail end of your Pluto square. But, you know, Pluto will get closer and closer to your south node, and that's your chart ruler. So it's letting go of like having to labor too hard to breathe, communicate, whatever. I see the third house as like, you know, kind of like smaller details, like the ninth house is the bigger picture. So you might move around a lot like where you're at now, but you really need to go somewhere further. And Venus will go retrograde very close to that also. And Mercury will go retrograde very close to that also at the end of this year. So I haven't even gotten into talking about that yet because a lot of people aren't ready for it. But we will have a Venus retrograde in Capricorn. Venus will kind of dip, become the morning star. She'll do her thing, dance with Pluto, go to hell and back, come back. Mercury will go retrograde from Aquarius to Capricorn. I mean, you know, the end of December through March is just totally fucking wild in my opinion. There's going to be some really significant changes in the world. Sure, Angeli. What does astrology say about crypto? What planets or aspects relate to crypto? I'm going to do a video on this. I've been thinking about this a lot because I listen to a lot of crypto stuff because my partner does that. I've been listening to bits and pieces of what astrologers are saying, and I'm like, I can do that better. So here's what I think. Just the astrology. This isn't my opinion. Uranus is in Taurus. So what does it want to do? It wants to free us from the idea of having to have physical money, right? Coins, banks, banknotes, bills, checks, whatever. It wants to free us from that. It wants to revolutionize. Uranus is also electricity. So Uranus going through Taurus is giving us all these new coins. Well, if you go back in time, the last time Uranus went through Taurus, we saw that we printed a bunch of bills and there was new coins and all kinds of things that came into circulation. Did we keep all of those? No. But some of those coins proved to be very valuable later on. Some of those bills we still continue to use, especially the bigger bills. Is that enough for me to say cryptocurrency is going to work? Not necessarily. But what I'm looking at all of this year, and this was really potent in February, really potent in June, and it's going to happen again around Christmas, Saturn squared Uranus. So Saturn in Aquarius is literally certain limitations on the people, on the masses, right? Saturn being these organizations, these big businesses, maybe these big banks, these conglomerates, whatever, that come in and they run up against Uranus and Taurus. So what happened in February? The Robin Hood traders, they got crazy. They were all trying to trade stuff. You know, certain platforms were being shut down. They were trying to tell people they couldn't trade. They were trying to manipulate the market. That's really been prominent this year. And then this last like month and a half, we had another square and we saw all of this wild stuff going on with, you know, fucking billionaires going into space while they're running companies where people are literally not capable of being able to work in healthy work environments. And we're seeing where, you know, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting screwed. So a lot of younger people, Uranus and Taurus, are getting involved in the markets, getting involved in finances. They're doing the AMC stuff. They're doing all these things, and they're really trying to kind of find a way to generate wealth. They're not just doing that through trading. They're doing that through cryptocurrency. So the Saturn-Uranus square that you see all year is kind of like the older people, older generations, the traditional, the banks, the people who believe in the dollar coming up against Uranus and Taurus. If I look into the future, especially at the end of this year, we start seeing eclipses that are going to be happening in Taurus, and the North Node will be in Taurus. So it's about stability, security, food. You know, do we have enough resources? Do we have enough supplies? You know, do we have enough money? Right? Those of you guys who aren't aware, like go and look at what's going on in the United States chart. Also another video that I'm working on. I'm creating all of these things right now so I can just sit down and shoot them. But, you know, America's coming into its Pluto return. Saturn is going to be, you know, doing some stuff in and around, I believe, America's moon. We also see that Venus is going to go retrograde along America's south node with Pluto, and it's our Pluto return. America's about to go bankrupt. They're about to be like, we're out of fucking business, and the jig's going to be up, and everybody's going to realize probably very soon that the dollar is not going to be very valuable. Okay? So you've got all these people who are putting money into crypto. So if we look at the next couple of years, right, and we see what's happening, we're going to see that, you know, the North Node moves further into Taurus, eclipses start in Taurus. We're going to see Jupiter in Pisces is going to sextile the nodes and also Uranus. So we're going to see global markets expand with the opportunity to be able to utilize trade and see value in cryptocurrency. Then we are also going to see that there's more opportunities to put money into generating energy from water or from exploration of the seas. Maybe we're going to grow more crops in the oceans. Maybe we're going to find ways to clean up the ocean or find sustainable water sources that don't necessarily come from fresh water. They come from salt water. We'll explore more all of those options. And then I think about, you know, Pluto trining the North Node. I think about Uranus coming into a conjunction in about 2.5 years with Jupiter in Taurus. The writing's on the wall. Like, cryptocurrency is going to make money. It's going to make a substantial amount of money, especially when Uranus is conjunct Jupiter. So those of you guys who are wanting to get in on it, you want to get in on it early, because once this starts taking off and we really do see a huge currency turnover, right? Because the whole point is to free us from the system, but the system is going to not go down without a fight. We still have to see Pluto go into Aquarius. So this will be a slow kind of deconstruction of what we value, whether or not our money is something that is really valuable. You know, is the dollar super valuable? If it's constantly fluctuating because we're printing a lot of money or because we have a lot of inflation, the whole world is really basing a lot off of the US dollar. And when the US dollar goes bankrupt, it's going to be a little chaotic. People are going to scramble. People are going to say, well, you know, I want metals, I want this, I want gold, I want that. But what may ultimately prove to be very valuable may be cryptocurrencies, especially the next like 2 to 10 years. And when we make that segue into digital currency that can't be manipulated and maintains its value, the people who are in on it early are also going to be more capable of utilizing those benefits, like being able to trade internationally. They may have more money to put towards resources, like, you know, growing farms and growing their own agriculture. And when I say stuff like this, people think I'm crazy, but watch some of my videos from a couple years ago. I did some videos with Lada where I talked about what was going to happen, you know, with all the conjunctions 2019 and 2020. And it was like 5 or 6, 7 years ago. A lot of those things have happened. Same thing when I spoke about the Trump's presidency, and I did a whole like prediction before he was inaugurated, and I talked about a lot of the things that happened. I talked about him doing business behind closed doors. I talked about what ultimately ended up being the Me Too movement, but I talked about the friction he had with women. So this isn't my political opinion. This is more just me looking at the stars and analyzing. But if the question is about, you know, what's going to happen with crypto, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be a smooth transition. You know, revolutions are very rarely without some kind of bloodshed, right? So I also think about Saturn squaring off with Uranus and them trying to shut it down, create laws, regulations. You know, apparently they're trying to shut down crypto, I think, in like Texas and a couple other different states. And I don't know if that's trading or mining. I think it also happened in New Jersey. I don't know. Don't you'll have to fact check me on that. But I know that certain states and also certain countries are really coming up against this, and they're challenging it. And part of me wonders, are they challenging it because they're afraid that it's going to overtake the system? So stay tuned. I'll talk more about that. That will happen. That will be happening soon. This is not financial advice. Thank you. Definitely not a financial channel. If you guys want one, there's plenty of those out there. Yeah, it's going to get interesting, especially because from my perspective, the whole benefit of cryptocurrency is to be able to have something that is not that's not going to be manipulated. It's not going to lose its value. It's not going to be something that is constantly going up and going down. Like, we see that happen all the time with what's going on economically all over the world, but really in the States. You know, we're coming out of several years of a pandemic. We've had a lot of economic turmoil. We've printed a lot of money. And, you know, I have clients that are very involved in the markets. They're also very involved in banking and loans and all kinds of things. And I'm hearing a lot right now that it's very difficult to get loans. There's great interest rates, but it's very difficult to get loans. And I start kind of looking at what's looming at the end of this year economically for the States. And I'm not as optimistic that we're going to come out of it. Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Yeah, the Cap Generation Stellium videos, that was one of my favorite videos. On the tax return this year, they asked for the first time, have you invested in crypto? Yep. Yeah, everybody's going to want to get paid. It's definitely going to be something. So you guys let me know if you guys have other questions. I'm probably going to wrap up in the next 15 minutes. So if there's anybody who's just tuning in, you have a question about your natal chart or about transits, let me know. I am happy to take a look at that for you. Also, if you guys have any recommendations or anything, you can always check out my page. You can leave comments, or I'll try to set something up on the community page if you have questions about things or videos that you want me to do. Right now, like I said, the first two on my list are to start talking about crypto. I might talk about just the biggies. Like I might talk about just like, you know, what's possibly going on with some of the Gemini stuff and the Bitcoin and the Ethereum, just the bigger ones. I'm not going to speculate for things like Doge and of that nature. That's, although I have some, just a little bit, but I had got a little bit before it got really big around the beginning of the year, and then it kind of fell off. Thanks, Lucas. And okay, so let's look at that. Lucas, just let me know where is it, what city you were born in, because I got to put that in. 9/15/83. (8:20 p.m.) And this is going to be in Butler. Grove City. Okay, so it's going to be the same. Make sure we get the right timeline. So September 15th, 8:20 p.m. Okay, and then August 19th. 7/22, so we'll do that one. So that's going to be from the 22nd of July through about the end of August. So let's take a look at what you've got going on here, Lucas. Sag rising, Sun in Leo at 0 degrees in the 8th, Sun in opposition to Saturn. A couple things. So first of all, you know, the Jupiter rising or the Sag rising can't go wrong. It's going to make everything bigger. I feel like with Jupiter being at 0 degrees and the Sun being at 0 degrees, that's interesting, that in conjunct that they make to each other. It's almost pushing you out of your cave, or it's pushing you to be more social, driving, going out, learning something, taking up a new course, something to evolve and change, especially creatively. You might find that you're watching a lot of videos that's about like art or doing things with your hands or perfecting things with your hands. There can be some aspect of you wanting to learn more about self-betterment, being more self-aware, things that you can like listen to while you're walking or when you're like vibing, music that helps you kind of move through things and kind of process like feelings that can be happening quite a bit. And then you've also got the moon, which always comes back to 13 of Capricorn because it's your lunar return. Your moon's in a nice little trine to Uranus. Now you've pretty much gotten this every single time, every month that it's been within about maybe 11 to 14 degrees. So now it's getting ready to retrograde and come back. So moon trine Uranus can bring this inspiration based off of your mood creatively. It can also bring in a sensitivity and a softness that makes you more open to like romantic encounters. I am looking at these planets that you have in your 8th house, which is definitely this examination of maybe like your sex life or how you feel about relating to other people or about vulnerability. You're just coming off of both a Venus and a Mars return. So the other thing that's interesting about that is like there's just been like all of this like completion that's been going on when it comes to those two topics in your life. So you might be getting ready to like share energy with a new person. In this chart also, ruled by Jupiter, it is in an aspect to Venus. So Jupiter in opposition to Venus can represent this feeling of wanting to assist other people or other people wanting to assist you, having the opportunity to be talking to people at a distance or talking to people online, perhaps learning through other people, sharing with other people. So that the Jupiter Venus aspect is actually very sweet. I think what's really kind of making me wonder is that moon in the 1st is like, are you a little bit moodier this month than usual? It's possible. You don't really have any harsh aspects though. The moon trine Uranus keeps things flowing. It keeps it good. You're also going to see that the Venus moving further into Virgo is going to be really good for your moon sign. So emotionally, I think that it's going to be really stabilizing for you. Hi, Catherine. Nice to see you. Hope you're feeling better. When I do look at the USA chart, I plan on looking at both charts. There's two charts. One I'm not as familiar with, so that's what I'm kind of working on right now. Yes, but we're looking at your lunar return. So this is just for the month of the end of July through it'll be the end of August. So your lunar return is going to talk about when your moon comes back. It's not your solar, it's not your sun. One other thing I'm wondering here is with Jupiter coming into a square with the nodes, and that's the real emphasis, are you either starting a new program? Are you learning something new? Do you need to make a change to your vehicle? Are you wanting to make a change to your car? Is there some kind of goal that you have pertaining to travel or any of these things coming up for you right now? Let me know. It's a busy chart though. Quite a few oppositions with the Saturn Sun and Mercury in opposition to Pluto, building into an opposition. But thankfully, you still have Uranus trining your moon. I mean, as long as you've got that going on right now, you really want to look at where Uranus is in your natal chart, or where Uranus is transiting in your natal chart. What's your rising sign? Let's see. I can probably find it. Here we go. Yeah, you need to look into a vehicle. You may find one that really catches your eye, but it's going to be further away. So I would say look out of the city that you're living in, because Jupiter in opposition to Venus means you may find what you're looking for, but it's further away. This is with cars and with romantic interests. Aries rising, though, in this chart that you have. So yeah, the eclipse was in your third house this year, right on your north node, ruled by Mercury, and Mercury's in the sixth. So a lot of like figuring out how to, you know, get around and making a change in a vehicle, but also changing the way that you communicate and being open to other perspectives. Most likely that vehicle change may actually come either during Libra season, or it might come right at the end of this year when we have that closing full moon that is going to be taking place in Gemini, which is going to close that eclipse point on your north node. So you might be choosing between two vehicles. Inspection coming up. Money, I mean, that's Venus for you. So Mars and Venus in the fifth. Jupiter is coming into an opposition again. So you want to see, actually Jupiter is going to hang out and it'll station, I think, at 22 degrees of Aquarius for about 40 days. So when Jupiter does go direct and it hangs out for about a month and a half, Jupiter will make an exact opposition to your Venus, ruler of money. I think you might sell some art. I think that you may also get the opportunity to participate in an art show or a collaboration with friends or other people who talk about your art, if that's something you're interested in selling. But Jupiter in an opposition, you know, ruler of the ninth, you can also make some money through teaching art or taking courses, learning more. Supposedly, you might also find somebody, you might find some kind of a partner or something at a distance with this opposition. So you might want to connect with people online and you can kind of start to develop that. Do you see a sugar daddy in my chart? Well, you do have Jupiter Uranus in your eighth. So if you do have a sugar daddy that comes in, it would be to the end of this year, or a sugar mom or whatever, but it would be somebody who's at a distance. Money is actually not so bad. I think actually once the North Node shifts into Taurus for you in the new year and it starts coming into a square with your natal Mars and Venus, it's pushing you to go more into a direction that involves pleasure, physical touch, enjoying things, having sweeter things in life, and actually selling more. Huh. Some crazy stuff going on in the world. This isn't like me being ignorant. I just can't watch the news. Like I have decided to take a lot of like the news notifications off of my iPhone, because it's just like super triggering. It's like if there's something important, I'll go and I'll look into stuff and I'll definitely do my research and stay up on current events through like other media channels. But like I can't listen to the news. It's too much negativity. One thing I would say for you, Lucas, is pay attention to what's going on during this retrograde that's going to happen in Libra, because it's going to trine your North Node, and also it'll make aspects to Jupiter in your 11th. So it's definitely opening up socializing for you, talking to people, sharing with people, meeting people in other places, and being able to start talking about what you value, setting you up for this next year. But the North Node transit through your second house, ruled by Venus, Venus in the 5th, is embracing your inner romantic, embracing your inner artist, you know, being kind of theatrical and dramatic, and really creating things in a very big way. What does a sugar daddy transit look like? It depends on what's on your 8th house cusp. So benefactors are your 8th house. So if you have like a nice Jupiter transit in your 8th house, or in Lucas's case, he's got Jupiter placed there natally. But I feel like these benefactors are likely to be people who come from a distance, or they're gurus, or they're teachers, or foreigners even. Yeah, move towards that North Node. That's not an easy thing to do, man. I mean, you had an eclipse on your North Node, so you're going to get there one way or the other. That eclipse will be in action for about 3 years, because you're going to have the full moon that's going to close it out at the end of the year. Next year, you're going to have a Mercury retrograde in those degrees, I believe. And then also there's going to be a Mars retrograde in those degrees. So whatever you started in June, or you started talking about or thinking about or building towards, like, that'll be something you work on for 2.5 years. I got a sugar daddy natal. But yeah, a nice sweet Jupiter in the 8th, or a Jupiter-Venus aspect from the 8th, maybe the 2nd to the 8th, because the 2nd house is your money, your belongings, the 8th house is other people. So I could definitely see, especially if you've got like Taurus or Venus or Scorpio on your 8th house cusp, and you've got like a Venus-Jupiter aspect going on there, that can bring it. But Jupiter in the 8th house is usually some kind of a benefactor. It can also be an indication of like inheriting through death, or like having a rich husband that dies. So be careful what you ask for. Part of it's your Cap Moon, boo-boo. I mean, that Cap Moon in the 10th house, ruler of the 4th, is like, you have to put your feelings out into the world. And, you know, if something's a problem, especially if you have planets in the fixed signs right now in like mid to like the 20-ish degrees, if something's a problem, make it bigger. Right now, you know, Jupiter is in Aquarius, and it's opposing your Mars and your Venus, and it's showing you where really you benefit going into group love, spending time with friends, like focusing on that. Like, you might meet people through socializing, because it's all going to trine your aspects in your 7th. It's not necessarily about dating and just having fun. It's like being able to find, you know, people who fill your cup, and not always in a romantic way. But the Jupiter aspect that you have all year, I've seen Jupiter oppose somebody's Mars and their Venus, and they find somebody, and it's like very big love. But usually it involves some spiritual growth, or dealing with somebody at a distance. Where's Sugar Papa? I'm trying to think of my Jupiter transits. When Jupiter went through Taurus. Yeah, I mean, in a different way. I mean, some people say sugar, but sugar can mean anything. Sugar, it depends on the sign. Sugar doesn't always have to mean money. It can be sex. It can be gifts. It can be other things. It's not always money. See? You could, but is it in Pisces, opposite your natal Jupiter in the 8th? So you would like have to sell pictures of your feet to get money? You might have to do that. You might have to have drinks with older men, right? That might be how it plays out, Micah. It's nice to see you. Okay, well, I think I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to wrap. Thank you guys for showing up, for tuning in, for checking out my show. It's nice to see you. I like getting a chance to spend Fridays with you. Stay tuned. I will be back on Monday. I'm going to have a new live. We're probably going to talk about what's going on with this Mercury Cazimi, and some of the aspects moving into Leo, and also further into Virgo. We get a nice little kind of bumpy ride the first week of August. So make sure you check that out, and you're aware that the next week is really hot. People are going to come out kind of guns blazing. I'm anticipating some drama, but also lots of tea. If you like this, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. This is also a really awesome way to be able to learn more about reading natal horoscopes. If you want to book a reading, check out my links below, check out my social media. I'm always happy to connect with you guys and see what you guys think. And if you have any ideas for content, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see all of you guys very soon. And don't forget to check out my subscriptions if you want to help support the channel. So that way I have some resources to be able to have more time to create more videos and maybe start putting together a study club. So I will see you guys very soon. Enjoy your weekend. Take care.